Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Colleen Baker. I am a producer here at the Houston Chronicle. I am reporting to you live from the office. On the call as well, you can see on your screens, I have Jonathan Alexander, our Texans expert extraordinaire, and of course, Marc Vandermeer, the man of the hour that we are all excited to get to speak to. So while we get started, we already see the numbers of people rolling in. I just wanted to take a couple seconds to talk a little bit about kind of Jonathan first. Obviously, if you read the Chronicle, you have been reading his Texans coverage. This is, I believe, your third season, right, Jonathan, covering it?
That's correct. My third
All
season.
right. Third seasons. I think, Marc, you may have a couple more seasons covering the Texans. What do you think?
Just a couple.
Yeah, but I think, Jonathan, you also covered college sports, school, a little bit. Was it the Panthers in Carolina?
Yeah, I covered the Carolina Panthers for 2 seasons and then college sports for 3 seasons prior to that, and a little bit of everything for 7 years prior to that. So,
And
news.
you have even covered Olympic athletes from what I hear. There was like a race between you and an Olympic athlete. Is that
Yes,
true?
it is true. I decided to race an Olympic hurdler just to show people the difference between regular humans and Olympic athletes, and the race was over before it started.
So you were the regular human.
I was a regular human. Yeah, he made me look very bad.
Well, speaking of things we're up against, I think Marc was the one that drew our attention that we are up against the Astros right now. Marc, is that right?
Don't remind people. They're not doing anything yet. They haven't started. So don't worry, everybody. Don't worry. You'll see them.
Yes, absolutely. Because Marc, of course, as you all know and love, is the vice president of broadcasting for a little team we know and love called the Houston Texans. And I read that you were the only current team employee that has attended every single game in the franchise history. Is that right?
Well, I've called every game in franchise history, attended, during the COVID year, I called all the games, but we didn't attend some of them because most broadcasters were not broadcasting their teams live on the road, right? We were doing it off giant screens, and it sounded pretty good, actually. We managed to work out a system that did the job for us, but man, oh man, it's just great to be on the road with the team every week. And yeah, I'm the guy, so I'm really happy about that.
Awesome. Well, I guess to start off and to kind of wrap it up before I pass to Jonathan, for those of you all attending, Marc and Jonathan are both going to be here to answer your inside questions. So please let us know, first of all, where you are tuning in from. Are you in the, Heights area like Jonathan? Are you at the stadium area like Marc, or Galleria like the Houston Chronicle office? Let us know in the chat. And while you're there, go ahead and start typing your questions for both of them in the chat, and we will get to as many as we can. And I think they're done listening to me, so I'll pass it over to you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks, Colleen. I appreciate it. I'm excited to do this, Marc. I appreciate you joining me. Marc is obviously one of the best play-by-play voices in the NFL in the country, and a nice guy as well. I enjoy attending his radio show that he has, Texans All Access. But I get started right into it, Marc. Let me ask you, tell me about your start. How does one become a play-by-play voice slash sports broadcaster? How did you get into it?
Well, it's probably like what you do. There's so many different paths. Everybody's got a different path to what they do, right? So play-by-play is just like that. There's so many different ways to get into the business. A lot of guys start in college doing games. I wasn't one of these people. I studied advertising in college. I had no idea I was going to be a broadcaster in college. I loved sports. I fell in love with sports while I was in college, but I never really dreamed that I could make a living in the world of sports. So I went into advertising sales. I was studying communication advertising, and I thought, well, let me do something where I can make money. So I went into advertising sales, and you don't make great money to start, but I was doing okay, for a young man right out of school, and I had my own little business. I eventually started, and selling ad time on radio stations and cable TV and stuff like that. But I started to develop a desire to be on the air, and it's probably like a lot of people. When you hear a great debate in sports talk, or these days a podcast or whatever, sometimes you want to weigh in. I've got opinions. Now you can just pick up your phone and get on Twitter or X or whatever and start You could voice your opinion. You could be heard. Back then, you call a radio station or you get into the business somehow. Knowing about the business, I bought an hour of time on a small radio station in the Boston area, and I sold the commercial time. So I was actually like making a tiny little bit of money on it, and I was doing a show, and I just went on the air. And it was a small station that virtually like only a couple of towns listened to at the most. And I was horrible. I just started off terrible. And then one night they had me fill in on a game, and I was just doing a high school game as a color commentator. I knew nothing. But at halftime of that game, I enjoyed it so much. At halftime of the game, I said, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to do this. I'm going to broadcast games. And then the adventure began. And I did everything it took to get better on the air, to improve on a daily basis, and to, get where I am today. But I'll tell you what, it's a long journey, Jonathan. A lot of stops along the way, a lot of work, and a lot of fun too. I mean, John Lopez, who I did a show with on 610, he's still there, of course, and he used to work with the Chronicle. He says it well. We work in the toy department of life. And that's what sports is, really. It's the toy department of life. There's so many stories, even today, obviously today, major stories going on, but this is the big distraction, right? This is the toy department of life, and I love being a part of it.
Absolutely. Was there anybody who used to emulate, anybody that you used to watch and try to emulate their style?
Yeah, but I don't sound like them. See, it's like actors telling you, like, I imitate Jack Nicholson, but the guy doesn't sound or look like Jack Nicholson. You never know. Like, and guitarists, they're copying certain styles of other guitarists, but it comes out the way they are. So I loved Dick Stockton in the 80s doing NBA games on CBS. That was one of my all-time favorite listens. He and Tommy Heinsohn and Hubie Brown, and the Rockets were in those finals in 81 and then in 86. So this is for old timers. And Stockton would do those games, and he was really good. I love the way he called the game. Jack Buck, but not Jack Buck doing baseball. He's a longtime Cardinals announcer and the father of Joe, of course. But Jack Buck doing Monday Night Football on national radio with Hank Stram was a big influence on me. I loved listening to the way he called a football game. And I don't sound at all like Jack Buck, but there's certain elements, ways that he would use to describe things that I stole from him. Play-by-play guys steal from everybody else. It's like guitarists. I play guitar, so I use a lot of guitar references. So Jack Buck is definitely one of them. There are others too. I mean, there's so many great ones.
Absolutely. I wanted to just briefly shout out Robert Colburn, who's in the chat, said he's in the Montrose area. So, Mark, I know you were at the University of Miami. You were at UMass prior to that. I know you had a few other stops as well. How did you end up becoming the voice of the Texans? What was the interview process, and how did you find out you got the job?
It was a long process because I was at Miami, and the Texans actually called people at the university saying they wanted to interview me, and that wasn't the way to go because I was technically working for the radio station there, WQAM in Miami, and I was broadcasting the games. Larry Coker, who was the head coach of the University of Miami at the time, we were sitting down for a golf tournament in the spring of it was probably the spring of '01. Yeah, it was the spring of '01. And Larry had just taken over the job from Butch Davis, who left to the Cleveland Browns. And Larry said, "Hey, the Texans called me and asked me about you today." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know. I didn't even know that they were inquiring about me. I hadn't even heard from them yet." And that blew my mind that they called the head coach of the Hurricanes to ask about me. And he said, "I said good things about you." And in coaching, everybody's very open about finding jobs and everything relative to radio. Man, radio, it's like all this under the cloak of darkness kind of stuff. It's a clandestine thing. I didn't want it to get out at all if I was considering it. And I really hadn't even thought about pursuing the Texans job. But they reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be on a short list of candidates. And I thought, okay, it's the NFL. We got to go. And Miami at the time, as you remember, Jonathan, was huge. I mean, we were about to embark on a national championship season. And I asked the Texans, "You're looking for somebody now? You weren't even going to play for another year and a half." And they said, "Well, we have a lot of events. We want the voice of the Texans to MC those events." And I thought, that sounds like a great gig, but I'm about to do the '01 season of the Miami Hurricanes, maybe the greatest college football team ever assembled. And it's not like I didn't want the Texans job, but I was like, I hope this takes a long time, this process. And it did, luckily for me. But Jonathan, I actually wrote a book about this called Go Get Your Dream Job. And it's just about pursuing what you want to do for a living, doing what you love for a living. How do you know what it is? How do you go about getting it? So various times in my career, UMass, Miami, the Texans, I don't wait for them to call me. We'll fly you in, whatever. I don't wait for those things. I go. So I'm coming in. So I met with people at the radio station. I met with the program director at the time, Bill Van Rysdam, and the vice president GM at the time, Laura Morris. I met with them. I set the appointment, and they're more than willing to talk to me because I was a candidate. But I set the appointment because I was coming through, and I wanted to get here and prove that I wanted the job. So I met with them, and then I came through again. And I was doing a game the second time with Miami. We were playing the Aggies in college basketball, 01 season, 01-02 season. And I flew in again, and I met with the Texans and the radio station reps at the same time at the station. So it's 6 people and me. It was kind of like a tribunal interview. And they were looking at some other candidates. A couple of them, I know who they are. But I just, sales background, I kind of sold it. I said, look, I'll be your guy. And they wanted somebody who could do a show and the games. The station had that requirement. It was very important to them. And I really wanted to do a show as well. I wanted to do a talk show. It was very important to me. So, eventually I got the job. There's one other thing that clinched it for me. And this is kind of one of those things where you never know what's going to happen in life. I was set to fill in on an NFL playoff game following the 01 season. It was the Dolphins and the Ravens. And the Ravens had already won had they already won the Super Bowl at the time? Yeah, I guess so. But anyway, the Ravens, they were trying to repeat, trying to get back into the flow there. I was the fill-in, and there's no shot you're going to get to fill in. But Howie Deneroff from Westwood One called me and said, "You're filling in on the game, but we're not going to need you. It doesn't happen." Well, 5 a.m. that day, I got a call. We need you. So I did that game on national radio, which was a mind-blowing experience. I'd never done an NFL game. And I did that game, and they heard it here in Houston. It's on national radio. It's a playoff game. And I think that helped, too. It's like, wow, he's already doing an NFL game. Geez, maybe this is our guy. So I got the job. So I know that was a long answer to your short question.
No, that's an awesome story. And timing is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, coming from the University of Miami, you're technically an outsider to the fan base at the time,
right,
but it's a new franchise at the same time. What's the process of ingraining yourself in a new community and trying to connect with the fan base?
It's a great question because, I wasn't born here. I got here as fast as I could. I'm one of these people. I always say I read 2, and this is true. I read 2 books when I got the job. I read Friday Night Lights and I read James Michener's Texas. James Michener's Texas is like this. It's like a cinder block. It's 1,300 pages, small font, but it's an amazing book. And he tells the story of the history of different places around the world with some fiction in there, and kind of keeps you gripped. But it really taught me a lot about Texas. So did Friday Night Lights. I thought Friday Night Lights, I know it's, Odessa Permian, but there's some threads there that run throughout high school football around the state. And I really saw quickly that high school football is the football religion of this state. It really is. I mean, when you think about the massive amounts of people going to a high school game every week, it's incredible. But I was an outsider, Jonathan, absolutely an outsider, was not a Texan, did not know much at all, but learned as quickly as I could. When I was doing the show, my first show was 9 to 11 on Sports Radio 610, and this is before all the other sports stations started. This was the thing. And there I am, total outsider. But the advantage is I was born into the city with the Texans. Brand new franchise, brand new me. So that's good. And as far as getting to know the history of Houston sports, well, I can read all day long, so I read as much as I could. They actually, 1 hour a week was the Van Chancellor show, the coach of the Comets. So I went to a Comets game just to meet Van. I was like, if I'm going to do a show, I'm going to know about the Comets. So I learned about the Comets, and I was doing the Van Chancellor 1 hour show as part of my show. But I met all the coaches. I met Rudy T at the time. Obviously I knew the Texans and the Astros. I kind of dug in and went to batting practice and got to know what's going on. I mean, I know baseball, but Astros. Okay, let's go. Let's go down to Minute Maid Park. It wasn't called that yet. and let's study, let's learn. But I was on the air and clearly did not know the history. You know, I wasn't part of the history. But I think people, you know, I'm sure a lot of people were like, "Well, who's this guy?" But a lot of people were so nice, hospitable, welcoming, and look, people were so excited about the Texans, and I was the guy. So let's do this together. September 8th, 2002. Let's beat the Dallas Cowboys. And I called the game. And, now I'm kind of bonding as we go. And now I've been here 23 years, which to a lot of Houstonians, it's still like I'm the new guy. But, as I've done this job, I once did a show in the O's with Gene Peterson and Milo Hamilton in studio. And a guy named Neil Talmadge at CBS Radio at the time, he helped me set it up. But I had Gene and Milo in studio and me. And I'm the young guy. I got Milo, total legend, Hall of Famer. Gene, total freaking legend, passed away recently, relatively. And God bless them both, RIP. But now I'm the dean. Now I'm the old guy, Jonathan. I've been here 23 years. You got Robert Ford with the Astros, and Craig does the Rockets on TV, and Matt Thomas. Actually, Matt might be as old as me or close, but Matt does the radio for the Rockets. But it was really cool to have those guys in studio because I wanted to reach out to them. And, I visited Milo in the hospital when he was there at Houston Methodist. And, I paid homage to Gene and Jim Foley a lot because those guys are awesome and I respect them. And I wanted to be part of Houston sports history fabric. And that was really, really monumentally good for me to associate with them. And I love doing it. I love being a part of it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most underrated things when you start a new job, whether that's covering a team like I do, or like you do, calling plays for a team. When you go to a new city, you have to understand the fan base. And
yeah,
also one of the things I tried to have as many coffees and dinners with people who have been here for a long time, John McClain and others, you have to know the history in order to connect with the people who will consume what you're doing.
I mean, McClain is a trip unto himself because I'm here for the expansion draft, and this is April 18th, 2002. That morning, I'm in a hotel because I didn't live here yet. I moved here April 1st. So it's what is it? Did I say February 18th or April 18th? It's February 18th.
Mm-hmm.
It's February 18th. So I'm in the hotel, and I turn on the radio. Hotels still had radios then. And I turn it on. It's 6:10. I know they're the flagship. And I hear McClain on with John and Lance. And it's like, well, I think the Texans should do this. And I'm thinking, who is this guy? Where have I gone? What is this? Yeah. And that's the experience a lot of people have when they first hear John McClain. And then you realize this is the guy. This is a Hall of Famer. He's the dean. He's everything in Houston football. And he was really, John's wonderful, and he was really, really great to me as I moved into the market. So were John and Lance too. I mean, Granado, I can't say enough about what he meant to me, and being nice to my family, and taking me in on holidays. It's just really wonderful. So I really appreciate the hospitality of everybody.
Yeah, I always joke to John that I used to go to the YMCA and I'd see the same people, and I'd tell them what I do, and they'd say, "Do you know the general?" And
oh yeah. Yeah.
And that's when I found out that was his nickname. And they're like, John McClain, yeah, I hear him on the radio all the time. So I had some big shoes to fill when I took over at the Chronicle.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Well, I appreciate it. Do you have a favorite call of all time? You've called them all. Is there a favorite that you have, or a favorite moment?
All right, so my favorite call is not what a lot of people would think, and I don't know if people might have heard this story because I've said this on the air because look, we have playoff win, Cincinnati, the first one in 2011, clinching the first playoff berth in 2011 at Cincinnati. There's so many moments. Last year was as great and fun a season as I ever did in any level, any time in sports. I would not take one moment away from 2023 with D'Amico Ryans. I mean, we are in a golden era, I feel, of Texans football. We'll look back on this and say, wow. But my favorite call, if I have to name one right now, is 2018 Monday Night Football, Tennessee Titans, 3 days after Bob McNair passes, and we're honoring him. And it's just an emotional night. You have the former Oilers in town. You have the lights go off and everybody waving their cell phone lights, and it's it's really emotional. Bob McNair's gone, the founder of the franchise, the man who did what it took to get professional football back, and he had passed, and the game's not going well. We're down 10-0, and we're chopping our way, chipping away, getting back in, and we get the ball, come up with a goal line stand, and get the ball. We have it at the 3, and as a play-by-play guy, first down at the 3-yard line, sometimes that could be like, all right, 1-yard gain, reload, whatever. First down, 3-yard line, Lamar Miller over the right side, goes to the house. 97 yards, longest run in the history of the franchise. And Lamar Miller, the kind of ribbing he took in the locker room from time to time was he can't go the distance. If he has a long run, they're going to run him down, stuff like that. But he took off and he's gone. And I'm calling it. And I'm just like, 40, 30. And I felt it. And I was going to say something like this had the Texans won. But at that moment, that run, that one of those spectacular plays in the history of the franchise, I said, that one's for you, Bob. And I said it in the call. And I just, the emotion of that, of Mr. McNair passing, and, that unprecedented play and beating the Titans in that moment, saying that one's for you, Bob, after he ran it in, I was like, wow, that worked, and I still get chills thinking about it because of all the emotions about it and everything it meant at the time. That's my favorite call ever. We actually have video of that in the of me in the booth and Andre and calling that play, because that was just one for the ages right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of this current team, I think, and you kind of briefly mentioned it, I think the 2023 draft will go down as likely as one of the most impactful drafts of all time for the Texans. Just securing C.J. Stroud at number 2, and then trading up to get Will Anderson at number 3. What do you remember thinking in that moment when the Texans pulled off what they pulled off?
Well, we're on the air for the draft, right? So we do a draft show, and even the morning of the draft, I wasn't sure they were going to take Stroud. There was some buzz, but you didn't know. You didn't know until you knew. Because remember, they might not take Stroud. They might wait. Who knows what they're going to do? And Bryce Young, they're not going to get Bryce Young. Remember, now they have the number 2 pick, all that, the build-up to the draft. So they take Stroud, and we're like, yes. Andre Ware, John Harris, and I are doing the draft show together, and we're at Miller Outdoor Theater. Yes, they took Stroud. And then we have Robert Hensley, our producer and update guy during the draft. He said, hold on, there's a trade. Texans move up to 3. And we're like, what? You will never have another draft moment like that. I mean, you might have to wait 40 years for that kind of thing. They move up and they go CJ, Will back to back. Our minds were blown. It was electric. That moment right there, that draft, incredible. You get Tank in that draft too. Look, it's just, it was an amazing night. As far as the night of the draft kind of impact and the feeling, the buzz, it'll be hard to ever match. And then you back it up because they get offensive and defensive rookie of the year. Who does that? That was incredible. What a year for Nick, for D'Amico, everybody, starting with that. Well, really starting with the hiring of D'Amico. I know the seeds were planted with Nick, and, you look at Nico, a 3rd-round pick in 2021, all the things that Nick did to sort of help set the table. Then you get D'Amico here, and you know what happens from there. So, yeah, just magical stuff. It's been one magical moment after another with D'Amico, I got to tell you. I mean, just this past week, beating the Jags, people are like, well, you didn't play. Hello, it's the NFL. Do I have to remind you we had 3 wins 2 years ago, and now we have 3 wins, and it's just getting to be October? This is good stuff. This is great stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it is very interesting because I got here in 2022, and I felt like nobody really cared at that point. They had just been beat down year after year. But and it's very funny to see now the reaction to wins, and even wins that aren't maybe like the biggest wins, and how fans just, feel about it. They just really care about the season. Is this the most hyped season that you've seen since you've been here?
I would have to say yes. 2012 to me was super hyped because they'd been to the playoffs in 2011. Schaub got hurt. Had Schaub been healthy, everybody listening probably knows the narrative. The thought was, oh, they might get to the Super Bowl. I don't know about that. They might have gotten to the AFC Championship game, though, and that would be where they've never been before. But whatever the case is, to have a healthy Schaub back, 2012, let's go. Rock and roll. Watt in his second year. Watt exploded in the playoffs, pick six, all the sacks, Brooks Reed. Everybody on the Arian was lights out, Andre, all of it. 2012 was hyped. And they go 5-0 to start, eventually 11-1 to start, but they fade down the stretch. But the hype going into that was phenomenal. Now, this hype this past offseason, I think is even bigger because, that was for Gary Kubiak. He had been around a long time. This is D'Amico's second year, and you have C.J. Stroud, who's clearly, look, I think Matt Schaub is underrated for what he did for the organization, but Stroud is clearly the best. Even though the sample size isn't as big, Stroud is amazing. So to have him come into this year like this, the additions you made, Diggs, etc., Aziz, everybody, I just think it's the most hyped. But now we're in it, right? Now we're in it. So to your point, yeah, you get like evaluation disappointment. They should have played better. You get some of that stuff, but that's okay. People care. People care because we talk about the Astros, right? When the Astros started losing 100 games a year, I'm not saying people didn't care, but they kind of just turned away and like, okay, what else is going on? We'll wait to see what happens. And obviously, they put together the greatest team of all time, in terms of Houston sports history, the greatest run. Whatever happened, they could lose this week. It's still the greatest run in Houston sports history. So that's awesome for them. But the Texans, relative to the Texans, have something unprecedented going on here with the amount of love for the team, the newness that they have here, and the potential is just, the ceiling is sky high. So let's see if they can reach it. Yeah.
Well, so far through 4 games, what do you make of the Texans start so far?
I think look, 3-1 is great. They're relatively healthy, especially considering where they were last year with the health. They arrived in Baltimore last year, week 1, unhealthy. They had major problems. They don't have as many problems this year. They have problems, but everybody's got problems. And I always urge people, when you're evaluating the Texans, look around the league. Look at what's happening to other teams. Nobody is immune to injuries. Nobody's immune to stinker games every once in a while. Look at Buffalo. Oh, Buffalo's so awesome. Well, then they have a stinker game. Now, I know, really great team, but Minnesota might be a really great team. They're 4-0. I don't know. How good is Minnesota? They look pretty good to me. So let's just see where it goes. Yeah, and I'm not going to say, you don't want to be peaking now anyway. That's kind of an excuse. D'Amico clearly wants a higher level of performance, penalties, all of that. But it's better to learn while winning, Jonathan. And, 3-1 is great. I look at the schedule. It's so hard to predict because look how close these games are. They're ridiculous. But I look at it and I say, this is the kind of start you need because I want to see them go minimum 10-7, win the division, take their shot. Now, I'd love to see more wins, and maybe we see it. Maybe we see a huge winning streak. I don't know. But it's a week-to-week thing. You know it better than most that every week you're just trying to put together that 1-week season and win that game on Sunday and take it from there. It is extremely difficult to win consistently in this league.
Yeah, that's why I often tell people it's important not to overreact to wins and losses.
Yep.
You can play really well 1 week, just like you said, and then you can have off week the next week. A lot of people are pretty up in arms about Laramie Tunsil's penalties. It's not anything he can't fix. The running game, they'll get Joe Mixon back. It's always important to stay level-headed.
Well, it's interesting. So we brought this up on D'Amico's show this week, how important it is. And we do shows, and I know you talk about the Texans year-round and write about them year-round, and we do shows weeknights at 6 on Sports Radio 610 all year round, right? And it's important to talk about the team for the fans all year round because you never know where a contribution is coming from. I'm at rookie minicamp, and I'm looking at this guy, British Brooks, and I'm thinking, I wonder if he's going to make the team. I mean, come on, it's rookie camp. They didn't draft him. Well, who is he, really? And there we are in week 4, game on the line, goal to go inside 30 seconds, and they line up offset I formation with British Brooks and Daria Gunbowale. Who had that on their bingo card? Because no Mixon, no Damian. They didn't have Akers in the game. They had Dare and British Brooks in the I formation. You're thinking, this is incredible. And they win the game with that formation. They run the play, they win the game, they throw it to Dare, boom. And we're debating in the offseason, will they keep Dare, really? Will they keep Robert Woods, really? Yeah, they did. And these guys everybody's important. And D'Amico wants it. Everybody's important. Anybody can make a play at any time, and we need you to. And look where they are. And I think the culture that he's established here is very positive. You know this, very positive, very empowering. And look, I don't even work for him. I'm empowered by him. I feel like I want to do my job better because of D'Amico Ryans. And that's powerful stuff right there. He's got it. Whatever it is that coaches need, he's got it.
So, speaking of that, they hired him, it seemed like at the perfect time, and he seemed like the perfect fit for this team. Former player, former team captain. You saw him play, now you've seen him coach. Why was it the perfect fit for the Texans?
I think after everything they had been through, all the negativity, all the struggles, the Cully and Lovey years were really tough, obviously. You weren't winning. The 2020 season, you didn't win. Bill O'Brien gets fired after 4 games. We all know the history. And everything was it just felt like it just felt down. You knew that you were going to have draft cap. You had draft capital. You already swung the Watson deal. I loved having Nick here to help build this thing, but you needed the right guy. Who was that going to be? It could have been a lot of people, but the fact that it's your own, it's D'Amico Ryans, who as a player was one of the most beloved players. And I've said this, I said this 5 years ago. If you'd asked me who is the best player leader the Texans ever had, I would have said, D'Amico Ryans. There's no question. And who's played here. We have a Hall of Famer, a future Hall of Famer, maybe 2 future Hall of Famers, and a number of other great players. But I always thought D'Amico Ryans was the best player leader that they ever had here in Houston, and now he's the head coach. And you saw former players just come right home, right back to the Texans. And something about that, that's great, but you got to be able to coach the new kids. You got to be able to coach the team. You knew he could do it. And he was ready for it. It was the perfect time because he spent 2 years as the defensive coordinator. When they hired David Culley, D'Amico wasn't ready to be the head coach yet. When they hired Lovey, D'Amico wasn't ready to be the head coach yet. I mean, I'm not saying he couldn't have done it, but it just seemed like those 2 years as a coordinator in a high-level situation, high-leverage situation with the 49ers, both of those years, able to come here as the head coach and come back to Houston, just perfect timing. Everything worked out. You had those 2 years of struggles, but you got good draft capital out of that. You had, Lovey go for 2, which, I'll always defend Lovey going for 2, not trying to screw the Texans over. He's just trying to end the game. He's trying to end the game. It's a 50-50 shot. If you kick that ball right there, you played in overtime, you could have won it anyway, Anyway, you won that game, and you get C.J. Stroud. So D'Amico plus Stroud plus Nick's moves, everything, boom, let's bring it together, and here we are living through it, and it's fun to be a part of it right now.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. It was a perfect storm for D'Amico Ryans, and he was obviously one of the better defensive minds in the NFL, having been the 49ers defensive coordinator and being number 1 in the league. But yeah, just a perfect storm right there. So for anybody who has a question, please send a question in the chat. I do want to ask you this. Do you have, and it looks like we have a few questions. But before I get to those questions, I do have a quick one for you. Do you have a Mount Rushmore of Texans players?
That's so tough. Obviously, I got more than a Mount Rushmore. I've more like, if it was a band, it would be Menudo. It's got a lot of people in it, Jonathan. But Andre and JJ obviously would have to be part of that. I think about people who could be in the Ring of Honor. I think they established a very high bar for the Ring of Honor, and I think that's good. Because it's kind of like inviting people to a wedding. Well, if we put this person in, now we got to put this and this, and it opens up the door for a lot of different players, and a lot of people deserve to be in the Ring of Honor, or deserve some kind of recognition that way, and maybe there's a way to do it in a different sort of way. Because I see the Colts who have outstanding history in Baltimore, but in Indy, they have Jim Harbaugh is in the Colts Ring of Honor. I know they went to an AFC Championship game with Jim Harbaugh at quarterback, but when you think of the Indianapolis Colts, does Jim Harbaugh even enter your mind? No, he doesn't belong in their Ring of Honor. They have a guy in the Ring of Honor there who I love. It's Bill Brooks, who is a wide receiver who played at my alma mater, Boston University. That's the only reason why I love that Bill Brooks is in their Ring of Honor. Other than that, Bill Brooks, I mean, come on. So they have a lot of people in their Ring of Honor who are questionable. I mean, great NFL players, wonderful. There must be a way to recognize them. I just don't want to make the Ring of Honor too easy. So I'm kind of avoiding the question. But the players I love who have done so well here, like DeAndre Hopkins, I can't say enough about him. I'll always say D'Amico Ryans, whether he coached here or not. D'Amico Ryans, outstanding player. Brian Cushing, outstanding player. Arian, Owen Daniels, you know who they are. Chester Pitts, I think, deserves a lot of recognition for the amount of games he was able to play, and during some very difficult years. And I'm going to forget people, but there's so many who have been a part of this thing. And there are a lot of guys here now who could get strong considerations for a Mount Rushmore or maybe a Ring of Honor down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we have a few questions for some fans. I don't see whose names they are, but one question is, how does CJ Stroud compare to other all-time Texans greats like J.J. Watt and Andre Johnson?
Well, look, those careers are in the books, right? So Watt is going to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Andre's already in. CJ Stroud's in year 2. He just had his 11th home start. He's thrown for more yards in his first 11 home starts than anybody else in NFL history, right? So that's pretty cool. Better record. He's off to he's off to a tremendous start in his career. I think he's got the talent to go wherever he wants to go. So does he have the potential? Yes, but he's got to keep playing. Unfortunately, here we had that situation with Deshaun Watson, who was so good for 2018, 2019, threw for a lot of yards in 2020, but I'll say that they didn't play well as a team, and maybe he didn't play as well as he needed to, despite throwing for a lot of yards. But that was really cool. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you just never know in this league. Look at Andrew Luck with Indy. CJ will be the first to tell you he's got to stick around for a decade plus to get that kind of consideration, and that's what we want to see. I feel like he's got a great shot to do it for a variety of reasons. I think physically he's built for the long haul. I really do. I think the way he plays the game, I like that he runs a little bit, but he runs selectively and carefully. Don't want to see him take so many hits, but he's very tough. Like I said, he's physically built for the role. And what's between the ears is so strong. CJ's so smart. I mean, when he's doing his press conferences, you can almost see the wheels. He's thinking 3 sentences ahead, and then he's deleting, and he's just really an amazing processor of information, and that is reflected on the field. When he drops back to pass, I have utter confidence that something fantastic is going to happen. Even when they put themselves in horrible situations like 2nd and 15, 2nd and 20, I'm like, we got Stroud at least. I think we got a good shot at this. Where some other quarterbacks would be like, that's death sentence to this drive. Might as well punt. CJ is that remarkable. I can't say enough about him. And I just love. I love how positive they are. I love how faith-based these guys are. I just love that all, because I think that can get you a really long way in this league and in life. And that's important to D'Amico too, that they're good people, that they live their lives well, and they love football and they love their families. And, it's not just lip service with these guys. They are really walking the walk.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question: do you think J.J. Watt would ever come back to join the coaching staff?
No,
not the coaching staff.
No way. No coaching. So here's another thing about coaching. I think there are a lot of guys who would be good coaches if they wanted to do it, if they were willing to make the effort and the sacrifice. I think Andre Johnson, Brian Cushing, I think all these guys, I think they'd be good coaches. Why wouldn't they? But they know what it is. They know what it takes. I work with Andre Ware in the booth. I think Andre Ware would be a terrific coach. And, when I talk to him, I can tell that he's got the bug. He coaches basketball. His son is a really good player, and they coach, AAU level stuff, and he's done really well with his teams. But they know the hours. They know what it takes. D'Amico seems to have it all worked out. I always thought D'Amico would be a good coach. I just wondered, is he going to want to do that? Because those who spend time around the game and they see things, they understand the sacrifices that they have to make. So a lot of guys aren't willing to make those sacrifices to be good coaches. So I think Watt would be good, but Watt is more likely to come back as a player than a coach. And the player thing, I doubted that from the get-go, but I guess never say never.
Yeah, never say never. Yeah, I don't get the sense. I get the sense that JJ is enjoying his off time and spending time with the family.
Probably got a groove now, right?
Yeah.
He's in a groove.
Absolutely. Let's see. In your opinion, who has been the nicest Texans player? Someone who is just a really good person.
There's so many. I mean, D'Amico's one of them. There's so many. I'll tell you who's super nice now. Aziz Al-Shire.
Aziz is super nice. Yes.
He's amazing. I mean, the guy, you talk to this player, Jonathan, we had him in a preseason TV production meeting. After the meeting, I wanted to run into Cal McNair's office and say, I think he should get a lifetime contract. You should never let him leave the building. When he retires, build a statue. Aziz Al-Shire, I love him. I want him around. John Harris said, when you look in the mirror, do you see D'Amico Ryans? He just feels like D'Amico Jr. in a way. But I don't want to say limited him. I don't want to just put that on him. I just think he's his own man. He's wonderful, leader, smart, great player, been through a ton in his life. Can't say enough about him. Super nice. There have been so many wonderful guys. I got to say, as players, this is the nicest group I've ever been around. This year, last year, these guys, I got to say, they are wonderful. Not that the other guys are jerks, but when I look top to bottom across the board, this is it.
Yeah. I'll agree with that, and I'll add Nico Collins, one of the nicest human beings.
Oh my gosh. I actually said to Nico, not on the air, I was like, you need a little more diva. I mean, come on.
He is the opposite of a diva. It is, and I don't even think he knows he's famous yet, which is crazy.
Yeah, whatever he's doing, keep doing it because it's working. I mean, how about the receivers who have played here? And we're looking at the best start ever, yardage-wise, in 4 games. And I know what I'm looking at. He's as good as a lot of people who have done some big things in this league. So let's see it continue. It's just like, okay, come on. And I love the guys who were drafted in 2021. I just love that group because we know what we went through in 2021. And to see Nico have that kind of success, Mills still here. I hated seeing Brev get hurt. Wish the best for him. You never know what's going to happen. But I love guys who from that year.
Yeah. We got a question from Fernie Ruano. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. But Fernie asks, says, Mark, cheers from Miami. What are your recollections of your days at the University of Miami, and how did it grow as a broadcaster?
I loved Miami when they won the '83 national championship, beating Nebraska. And throughout the years, I always followed them. My parents were snowbirds for a while. I always had a connection. When I got the job, I had to pinch myself, and I don't want to bore everybody, but so there's something about the Orange Bowl. The Orange Bowl, which is demolished now with the Marlins Stadium is on that site. But when I first walked into the Orange Bowl, it was for a scrimmage. I got chills because I'm sitting in the broadcast booth and I see the palm trees and the open end off to my right, the west end zone to my left. I'm thinking Hale Flutie was there. Joe Namath, the finger wave was there after they won the Super Bowl. All the great games, San Diego, Miami, 41-38 overtime, Dolphins perfect season. There are more great football games of any kind in that stadium than anywhere else in the country. That was such a treat to be a small, tiny little part of that history, of that part of history. It was amazing. I've got the McNairs. I'm doing a call with the Houston Chronicle right now. You want to
please,
come? You want to see?
please get them.
You want to see?
What's up,
Hannah
Hannah?
McNair. Hello.
Hey, Hannah. What's up,
my
Hannah? How you
gosh.
doing?
Oh my! And it's Caltober here. It's Caltober here internally.
Nice.
In the Houston Texans organization.
Hey, tell Hannah tell Hannah and Cal they have to be the next guest on our special series.
Oh, he wants you on his Houston Chronicle call here for the people. So how about this? Happy Caltober. Hey, Cal's birthday's later on this month.
Hey, happy early birthday, Cal.
A surprise with the McNairs. See, you never know what's gonna happen. By the way, this
we have to take advantage of this one. I have to pop in as the producer. We have to ask you each a quick question.
Wait, I've got the headphones on, Colleen, so they can't hear.
Oh, they can't hear me.
Okay, hang on. I can switch it here to this.
Either way, while you'd get their audio set up, I want to make sure they can hear me. But we want to say thank you again first of all, for the cameo. We're not expecting. We love a good cameo here. And also, obviously, make sure to follow along all of our sports content coming up from Jonathan as he covers this season. For the McNairs, I guess each of y'all, what are you most excited about this season if you had to choose one thing?
I think just the great staff we have, the great team we have on the field, the great coaching staff we have. I think we're in good hands, and I think the best is yet to come.
Yeah, the next game. I can't wait to get to the next game and just play it one at a time and see where the story leads. But I think it's going to be really exciting, and I think our best ball is up ahead of us. So I can't wait to see how this journey goes.
I do have one.
And happy Caltober.
Can I ask one question? I asked
it's turned into a press conference. Go ahead, John.
I asked this to Mark earlier. Why do you all think D'Amico was the perfect fit for the team at the time?
Oh, I think we went through the interview process a lot during those couple years. So you meet a lot of people, you see what type of coaches are out there, and you start to get a really good feel for what you want in the building. And while there were a lot of good candidates, he just fit exactly what we need.
Yep.
Good. Cal concurs. There we go.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate y'all. I appreciate everything that y'all do, and thanks for letting us have Mark on this live broadcast. And I'll turn.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's fine.
No. You're good. We appreciate it.
But I have some really cool boots too.
Oh, look at that.
Hey.
Okay.
Hey, hitting us with the fire boots.
We'll definitely have to have you all on next for our next virtual event. Most definitely.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, y'all.
This happens to me every day, by the way. They bring me cookies. It's awesome. Rock and roll. Thank you, Cal. All right.
All righty. Well, I think that's pretty much our time. Jonathan, do you want to let people know where your newsletter goes out?
Yes. So I want to let y'all know about the newsletter. Also, if we could put Mark's book in there. But I have a newsletter called Texans Insider. It comes out every Monday early afternoon and every Thursday late afternoon, called Texans Insider. You all can find it on my social media pages or on Houston Chronicle, and they give you behind the scenes, in-depth analysis on there. And it's free to you all.
Absolutely. And Mark, where can they find your book if they need to order their own copy?
Amazon, and I apologize to local booksellers, but Amazon is it's the largest bookstore in the world, so I went for it. Go Get Your Dream Job on Amazon. Just search that, and you can find it. And it's a quick read. You'll read it in a couple hours, and it's helpful to young grads, young people, or anybody trying to find out what they want to do for a living and how to go get the job in that field.
Excellent.
Oh, Colleen, I forgot to give a shout out to our WhatsApp, Texans Insider WhatsApp, where you can get all of our content on there as well. Fatima would be mad at me if I did not shout that out.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing you, Mark, the rest of the season, and can't wait to talk to you again soon. Thank you so much again to you and Jonathan. Thank you both for the time. Obviously, we're going to be following this season with the Texans very closely. And stay tuned for the next week. We are going to have more HC Live events coming up for Hispanic Heritage Month, for the election, as well as more sporting topics from the Texans, the Astros, the Dynamo, you name it. We've got it all covered here on HC Live. So thank you again, gentlemen, and we will see you all soon. Take care.
Thank you. Go Texans.